morning, everyone. We're back with more Barnstable this morning. I'm Sarah Colvin, and live in studio, Chief of Police Paul MacDonald. Chief, good morning.
Good morning, Sarah.
Thank you so much for coming in and joining us live in studio.
I'm glad to be here.
So I asked you to come in live in studio because I saw your presentation at the Greater Hyannis Civic Association's meeting last week and was really fascinated by the display. And so we have a kind of show and tell today, and this is really kind of scary when we think about this this product that's being marketed as almost a synthetic marijuana. What can you tell me about these things that you brought in to show us
Well, this
today?
is spice. This is what spice looks like. This is the way it's packaged. You know, each one of them is packaged differently. Each one is labeled on the back of it, not for human consumption. And each one of this is labeled the exact same way. What it is, it's a plant matter that's ground up, and then they spray a chemical on it to give you the same high as if you were smoking marijuana. This is legal because what they do every time the DEA catches up to them and examines it and goes through the process, they change the molecular structure of it so that it becomes legal again. So what we're doing, we're going out around through the entire town. We've identified over 50 convenience stores, and we're asking them to voluntarily remove this product from the shelf because it is so harmful.
Indeed, and you know, just looking at something like this, and I'm not sure how well our viewers can see this, but this has got kind of an image of a skull on it. It's called Mind Trip. It's labeled not for human consumption, but it says extra potent blend, and so, you know, ostensibly it's potpourri, but I think everybody knows what people are using this for.
Correct, and this one's labeled nuclear bomb.
Right.
You know, so you can only imagine what is in this product. And that's the problem, is nobody knows what they're taking because it's made over in the Far East, you know, and nobody knows what the chemicals are that's spraying on it. Then they go back and they ingest it. And you have all kinds of negative reactions to it, nausea, vomiting, psychotic reactions, suicidal thoughts. So the stuff is extremely dangerous.
Indeed, and you know, as you said, it's kind of being quasi-marketed as a synthetic marijuana, but far more dangerous.
It is far more dangerous than marijuana, and it's out in a couple of convenience stores out about town. Not in the corporate stores, but more in the mom and pop stores. We've identified probably 10 different stores, and right now we've got their cooperation. They removed this from their shelves along with their glass pipes. So progress is being made.
Absolutely. What can people do to protect themselves against this? Obviously, you know, there's concern amongst the homeless population, as well as, you know, I'm sure that the parents are worried about teens. Some of these are labeled Scooby snacks and have Angry Birds on the cover. You know, the cartoon, kid-friendly kind of thing, which is slightly terrifying.
Well, the parents have to be aware of what the kids doing, but we're going to be asking the public that if we don't get the cooperation from the store owners, we're going to be asking the public not to go into these stores, not to give them any of the business, you know, to put some pressure on them. Because right now the stuff is illegal. The town is in the process of putting together an ordinance that would prohibit this anywhere in the town of Barnstable.
Indeed. How long has this been around, Chief?
Oh, this has been around for several years.
Indeed.
You know, but it's coming to the forefront now. We're seeing a definite spike in a certain segment of the population in town, but it is definitely a problem out there right now, particularly on Main Street, Hyannis.
Exactly, exactly. And I know that our state legislators are working to try and strengthen laws to make the substances that are in these illegal, but as you say, the companies that make these kind of they see that and they just use different chemical compounds moving forward.
They've already identified 17 difficult chemical compounds that we use to make this, and they have been outlawed. But as soon as they do that, they just come up with another one. They change the molecular structure, and it's legal again. And the problem with the police department, there's no real easy way to test for spice. You know, we can test for heroin, we can test for cocaine, but it's extremely difficult for us to test for spice. When we do seize this, as we did with this, we seize it, we send it to DEA and wait for the chemical analysis to come back.
Indeed, but as you said, you have been in touch with all the convenience stores, and again, mostly the mom and pop ones that have been found to be selling this, and you're getting a good response, some good compliance from folks that say, you know what, we really don't want to have this in our stores.
Correct, and they want to cooperate, they want to be good neighbors, they want to have a successful business on Main Street, so yes, we are getting a certain level of cooperation.
Great. Chief, can we talk a little bit about the homeless population? I have seen some stories in the news lately about how the numbers have gone up, and just, you know, being in and around Main Street, Hyannis, I certainly have noticed an uptick. So are we seeing an uptick, and to what do we attribute those
We have definitely
numbers?
seen an uptick. You know, we do have the community impact unit. That unit deals specifically with the homeless population, and the year in 14 months they've been out there. They've identified almost 400 different individuals they've had contact with who they believe are homeless. And the homeless, you know, are categorized in a couple of different situations, not just the individuals staying at the shelter, but it's the individuals staying at the camps. Then it's the individuals that are couch surfing. They go from friend to a relative. They have no place to stay. They have no permanent address, so they are basically they are homeless. And the reason is, I think all the social service agencies here are in downtown Hyannis. The shelter is here, so there's a draw here. And my biggest concern is I don't want Barnstable specifically, I do not want Hyannis to be a mecca for all the homeless individuals southeastern Mass or in New England, and I'm concerned that's what it's becoming.
Indeed, and you know, I've heard kind of, I guess, rumors that the word on the street up in Boston is that Barnstable is the place to go if you are in need of services or if you're homeless.
Well, it's not a rumor. They definitely do that. You know, there are a number of shelters up in Boston, and one shelter had to close in New York, and all of those individuals, there were 700 homeless individuals that was dispersed to a bunch of different shelters, and a lot of them ended up here in Cape Cod. It's not a rumor. It's a fact that other shelters, once they do get full to capacity, they send individuals down here because the shelter is here. You know, in every urban area, they have a shelter. That's not uncommon.
Right.
But what is unusual is that our shelter is 1 block off our main commercial street. You know, and that's unacceptable. So at the very least, the shelter has to move from its current location, in my opinion.
Indeed. So, Chief, what is the strategy? I know that obviously the police factor is just one part of this, and you know, as we think about all the services that are being used, not just the ones specific for the homeless, but our municipal services, your services that take up a lot of time. So, kind of what's the strategy for taking a look at this now?
We have dedicated enormous amounts of resources and assets to deal with this problem. You know, and again, I am not the expert, but there's a couple of things. The shelter, as it currently exists, has to close. The shelter has to move, and it has to be reformulated into a transitional shelter with a minimum amount of beds at night. You know, right now there are 60 beds in that shelter. It's probably full to capacity every single night. We have to stem the tide of homeless individuals coming into Barnstable. Barnstable's proved itself to be a caring community. You know, we've taken care of everybody for the past 30, 35 years, you know, but right now we've reached the saturation point, you know, so it has to stop. We have to deal with the homeless population that is here and dissuade from more homeless people coming into town. And that's going to be a real challenge.
Absolutely. And you know, obviously we've got the community impact unit here on Main Street, but how much time is taken up dealing with phone calls and just homeless related issues for you and the department?
We're in the process of putting together some stats right now. A couple of town councils have asked us to do that. You know, above and beyond the 3-member CIU unit, that the next fiscal year town budget, we're going to have a 4th officer assigned to us. So you're talking a minimum of $400,000 to $500,000 just for police coverage for that alone. And then you look at, we probably handle between 1,200 1,800 calls dealing with the homeless population, and probably Noah Shelter, 77 Winter Street, is probably our #1 call volume.
Wow.
You know, for that one location. So it demands a lot of our resources, and I won't speak for Chief Burnell, but I'm sure it provides a lot of calls for service for the Hyannis Fire Department also.
Absolutely. Well, Chief, I appreciate you coming on and giving us the show and tell here. Certainly, hopefully people will be able to keep an eye out for this and know if they're, you know, to keep their kids protected, as well as keep an eye out for it in our local convenience stores, and we will keep up to date on the homeless issue. I thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Chief of Police Paul MacDonald joining us live here on Barnstable this morning. Our community profile segment is next. First, let's get that fishing report from Captain Gary.